So do you think the increased tariffs on Chinese imports will actually go through?
Well, I think at the current moment it's a bit hard to predict because I think it's at hands of European countries. But if this tariff votes will get through, I think there will be some impact on China's EV exports.
What would be the impact? Do you have any numbers that you can walk us through?
Well, if you look at China's EV exports, well, we don't have official numbers in terms of country breakdown, but some market estimates that the EU markets accounts for about 20 to 30% of Chinese EV exports. But of course, there's a further breakdown in terms of China, made in China and designed in China brands. For example, the US Tesla, they have factories in China and they also export their EVs to other countries. So, I mean, if getting into that breakdown, the China names, the Chinese brands exports to EU could be a bit lower. But yes, I think in terms of the EV exports in general, there will be some impact if EU, does vote for these tariffs.
And of course, having said that, the next question is, will the EU come out as a clear winner in all this? And everyone is whispering about a retaliatory action potentially coming from Beijing. And, there has been some threats around it regarding dairy, brandy, pork, as well as cars. What are your expectations? Because China does have a lot of investments in Europe. How does that dynamic play out?
Sure. I think China has already launched some anti-dumping investigations over EU exports of agricultural products, dairy products. But I think if there's any retaliations, it's going to be a passive and reactive actions coming out from China instead of full-fledged retaliation. And just as exactly as what you've said, actually, if you look at China's investments into Europe, the trend has been fluctuated for the past few years, but it has highly concentrated in EV sectors. So that clearly states that Chinese companies and probably from the national level also they're taking a different approach in terms of how to interact with the rest of the world. While in the past China even now, China is still a big trading partner of many countries, including European countries. But on the other hand, we shouldn't forget that China is also one of the largest investors in the world. Chinese investment into EU, for example, from 2023 to the first half of this year, so 50 to 60% investments from China going into the EV sector in Europe.